The Conservative leadership race is officially on hold. The party's Leadership Election Organizing Committee made the decision last night, just a couple of hours after one of the campaign's frontrunners urged the committee not to suspend the race, right here on this program.
Democracy demands that you have an effective and efficient and a permanent leader of the opposition. We have other parliaments around the world who continue to sit while ours is dormant. And we have other leadership races going on, including just south of us to the United States of America. So I'm not sure why it is that the media, other members of our party, other contenders, and some members of the government think that it's ludicrous that we want to have a permanent member to hold the government to account.
Peter MacKay tweeted today that he respects the Leadership Committee's decision and looks forward to continuing the contest down the road. Other candidates had been calling for a campaign suspension for well over a week, so why now? Dan Nolan is the co-chair to the Conservative Party's Leadership Organizing Committee. I spoke with him just a bit earlier from Toronto. Hi, Mr. Nolan. Thanks very much for making some time for us.
Hi, good afternoon, Vashi.
I wanted to start off, if you don't mind, with a point of clarification, because I read through the release that LEOC sent out. It says that your decision would mean a delayed announcement date. Can you just be clear? Does this mean that the race is delayed? The actual vote, all of that is delayed, or just that the vote might take place, but you might announce it at a different time?
No, that's right. I mean, well, it's a little more complicated than that because, as you know, our process, part of our process at least, involves mail-in ballots because that's part of our Constitution. So folks could be voting when they receive their ballots, but we haven't figured out when that would be yet. But just to be clear, we wouldn't have a vote day of June 27th. That's that no longer is operational. So
does that mean that you haven't determined whether or not you could still, in the coming months, let's say, send out those ballots and that they could be cast?
Well, if folks can, when they receive them by mail, they can vote and then mail them back in. So for example, the way it worked last time, about 96% of our vote came by mail, and that was cast over several weeks, for example.
Could it be an only mail-in vote then? Is that a possibility?
It could be. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think, well, we've decided not to have a physical convention on the 27th. I believe the view of the committee is not to have a physical convention at all. So we would either have only mail-in ballots, or if there was another technology, and we are looking into that, but we're not there yet on whether we do online voting in addition or whether we do, say, phone-in voting in addition to that. But our Constitution requires us to have mail-in ballots, and we could very well go down the path of 100% mail-in ballots, yes.
So just for members who are watching then, if just as far as timing goes, you're saying there's not going to be a convention on June 27th. But is it possible that the vote takes place at some point, within that time frame, and an announcement is still made about who is the leader, if in fact you do determine that it's just mail-in or a combination of online and mail-in?
No, June 27th doesn't work anymore. So if you look at what we did, one of the things we did is we pushed back the membership deadline from April 17th to May 15th. And that makes it impossible to certainly do a mail process and have the results on June 27th.
So when will you decide the timing now? Like what happens after this?
Well, we've committed to come back to members on May 1st with a view as to what the path forward is. But obviously, we're going to keep working over the next several weeks to look at how things are processing. We started at the beginning of this process as things started to evolve with a view to look at what can we do, and there's certain steps we need to do to be able to provide a legitimate vote. And when it became clear that we couldn't do that anymore, that's when we made the call, and that was last night when we had our committee meeting after staff gave us advice that because PC headquarters or Conservative headquarters is shut down, they're not processing mail right now. All those issues, it became, we crossed over from yes, we can do this to no, it's unlikely we can do it.
Can I ask you a bit more about the timing there and just drill down on that? Because you know as well as I do, some of the contestants in this race were asking for a while for this to happen. And in fact, it's been 2 full weeks at this point since Canadians were told stop traveling. Why didn't you make this call earlier?
Well, we've been gathering information and doing work with our vendors. And as I said, up until really up until yesterday, the conversation that we had yesterday afternoon with party staff, we were still of the view, and they were still of the view, that we could go forward. But the conversation we had yesterday, and then, discussing it with the committee last night, it became obvious that that no longer worked.
Can you see how, for a lot of people who have been consuming the news over the past few weeks, it would seem odd that your committee still thought it was possible to have a big convention a few months from now, given what we've seen just over the past few weeks, and also given the number of contestants who were asking you guys to put this on hold?
Sure. Look, absolutely. But, you look at the U.S. and the Democrats are actually moving to our process of doing votes. They're doing votes by mail as opposed to whatever the processes that they had in place before. So that is still going forward. We're going to put a stop to the campaign and come back on May 1st and have better information, because if anything's happened, and I'm sure you've seen this too, things have changed rapidly over the last couple of weeks, and we want to make sure that. We can that we've got all the information in hand before we make these decisions. So, is
it unfair that you, again, asking just in light of the other candidates like Rudy Husney, Marilyn Gladu, who had asked for this earlier, who then you made this decision after the cutoff, which they didn't make? Is that unfair?
Well, and look, personally, I like Rudy a lot. I think he's got a great, bright future. I've worked with Rudy on 2 election campaigns, and I think he's fantastic. I don't know Marilyn Gladu, but I was very impressed with her when I saw her on television. Rick Peterson, who you didn't mention, but he ran in our process last time, which I helped organize as well, and I think he's got some really interesting ideas. Unfortunately, they didn't make the cutoff. Because they didn't sign up enough members and they didn't raise enough money, and other candidates in this race have had exactly the same time with exactly the same rules, were able to clear the bar quite easily. And they were, as a group and individually, not very close to making the bar, which is unfortunate, because I thought they all added, real interesting ideas and value to the campaign, and it would have been great if they'd have made it. But it was a high bar and a tough test, and they didn't make it, unfortunately. What
about the decision to suspend everything, but to suspend fundraising, for example, in the interim? Does that put someone like Peter MacKay, who's already raised a ton of money, at an unfair advantage?
Well, I can say one of the things is our announcement last night made none of the campaigns happy. So I think it's probably fair to say that it's, we asked. We obviously can't control what people consider campaigning. We did ask the campaigns to refrain from campaigning until the beginning of May, when we make a formal determination as to what things will look like. The one thing we can control is fundraising, because all the fundraising goes through the party. So that's the call we made, and that's fair for everybody. And the other thing we did, of course, as I mentioned before, is we pushed the membership deadline from April 17th and pushed that out to the next month to keep that fair as well.
When you say that the decision last night didn't make anyone happy, is that the direct reaction that you had from all the campaigns that remain?
Yeah, I don't think. Well, look, I didn't talk to anybody at the representatives of the campaigns that I talked to, and I saw some Twitter information out there today, which would lead me to believe that people were equally unhappy with the decision we came to. But look, I mean, we needed to take staff's advice, and we have to do this. Look, it's an important. I agree with everyone who believes that this is a very important role, and we have an obligation to Canadians to fill this role as quickly as possible. But we need to be realistic about what we can do, and what we can do safely, and what we can do responsibly. So we need to take all that into account, and it's these decisions are never easy, and but that's where we wound up.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening and stay safe.
You too. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.